All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Grumpy Acres. We are here again for what is this, the third episode of the 28 Principles of Freedom. I got tagged from Life Done Free. Everybody say hi to him. Hey, before we start into the 28 Principles, I got a couple things that I wanted to talk about. Number one, let's see, J&N Caldwell commented on the last video. Said, you guys model how to disagree maturely and work through your thoughts as we all should. Great conversation. And I wanted to respond to that on the video. Here's my take on this whole thing. What we were disagreeing on were not doctrinal issues. They were procedural issues. I mean, Tag and I are close enough on that idea that it makes absolutely no sense to choose that as a hill to die on. I've seen too many instances where people that are supposed to be on the same side get hung up over the details, and they lose sight of the fact that they are not disagreeing doctrinally. And I've seen it in churches a lot. That's where I've seen it. But I also see it on conservative forums and patriot forums where people turn on each other in a heartbeat. So that's my thought on maturely disagreeing. I mean, if Tag and I were, if let's say, for instance, that I was taking welfare when I really didn't need it. I had signed up and I was taking welfare and I really didn't need it. And he pointed it out, and I said, no, I can do this. I'm okay. That would be a different issue. But we're so close on this that it doesn't even really matter.
I think that, Garen, I think there's another side to this too, which is discourse is healthy. It always has been. This is the thing that we run from as a society. And, this is the things we want the government. We're going to get into this today in a couple of these principles. But, what the government's job is, it's not to, healthy debate is good. And, there's nowhere does it say that thou shalt not be offended. It's fine, and I'm a big enough guy and you're a big enough guy. We can have a good conversation and not totally 100% agree. It's fine.
Absolutely.
I don't dislike you for a bit of it. It's fine.
Great thought. Hey, here's the second thing, and this goes back to the harvesters thing, but it's not the harvesters issue. So, like I said I was going to do, I did some research on it. Harvesters is a 503c company, and it raises the question. It really raises the question: can we be too principled? And the reason why I ask this is because I have always believed that churches that have that 503 designation, or was it 504 for churches? I don't. It's something like that. But once they do that, they've become agents of the state, and they may not be towing the state line now, but eventually they may be put in a position where they could be, a la 2020, 2021. Right? So can we be too principled if we walk away from organizations like that before they've proven that they've gone across the fence and they're working for the state? I really want to know, because I'm kind of torn on this whole thing.
Yeah, I think there's a deeper issue here, Garen, to me at least, is that yes, can we be too principled? See, here's the thing, is that if you don't stand at a line, whatever that line is, if you don't stand at it and you say, okay, it's okay to move a little bit, then that means it's arbitrary. If it's arbitrary, that means it's not set in stone.
Okay.
So either give in or don't. Like, to me, there's just certain lines I'm unwilling to cross regardless of the cost, just like what happened with my career. It was just non-negotiable. It isn't, I can't move a little. I have to take a stand. And so to me, I think there's things you can give on, but I also think that there's virtues. There's those basic, principles that you stand on that I think, at least to me, I'm going to stand on them. I'm not going to give a single inch. I'm just not going to.
Right. And from a freedom standpoint, the reason why the whole thing came into my head is I see these guys on these patriot forums, and they start talking about these obscure 1853 laws, and they start talking about all this constitutional stuff. And they're 100% correct in what they're saying, but they're their principled stance on it is we have to do this way. That's the way it should be. And do we disengage ourselves from the process by not realizing that it took us a long time to get here? It's, I mean, minus some really bad things happening, it's going to take us a long time to get back. You know, and I just, the thought occurred to me, and I just wanted to know what you thought about it. But
I think, there's another, for me personally, there's another side to this that isn't even, Declaration of Independence, constitutional, Bill of Rights related or any of that. Is I'm trying to leave the system. I mean, I am purposely trying to spend my resources, I'm sure we'll talk about this through all of these principles, but just like investing, I'm not investing in the markets anymore. I'm investing in me. I'm investing in businesses. I'm doing things that I can control, that I can control the outcome. I can control where the business is done. I'm trying to purposely take my productivity elsewhere. So to me, those principled lines are really important. I don't want to be involved in the system. I just don't want to be.
Okay. I get it. I'm tracking.
Yeah.
And with that said, why don't we get into the first principle tonight? So we're starting with principle 5, and it's all things were created by God. Therefore, upon him, all mankind are equally dependent, and to him, they are equally responsible. I'm going to let you start on this one because I know you've got some very definite thoughts about this.
Yeah, I think there's some interesting things. I think when we get on to number 6, I want to come back and address why they use the choice of the word mankind here, because I think this is super fascinating to me personally. But I think this goes back to a lot of the things that we've talked about in principles 2, 3, and 4, right? That at the end of the day, all things were created for God, and therefore upon him, all mankind are equally dependent, and to him are equally responsible, and being accountable and being responsible, and the lack therefore of, is what's caused a lot of the problems I think our country's in, and our society is in today. I think this just goes all the way back to the same thing, that those morals and those virtues is what keeps, a society going, and keeps it, just keeps it going on. So I think this one's a lot like the first, not the first 3, the 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, and I it's kind of what I got from it. It's kind of a restatement of what they said in those 3 principles. The one thing I took away from it was, doing some research. I kept seeing the phrase self-evident truths, and the more I read, the more I understood that the founding fathers felt that these self-evident truths that led into the unalienable rights all flowed from God, meaning man, i.e., the government, can't take those away from us. The only way we can is abdicate the right word? We cannot exercise our rights. Which and that was the other thing that I saw in the stuff I was reading, that they felt that by saying these self-evident truths flowed from the Creator, that a man was using his full capacity of reason by completely understanding that. And I thought that was a very interesting thing for them, the people that wrote the principles, to come up with, and I think it shines true if you want to. I think it does shine true. Understanding that these unalienable rights don't belong to us; they belong to somebody else, and i.e., the Creator, not somebody else here on Earth. I really like that. It just gives me a warm fuzzy when I think about it.
I think this also have a little bit to do with too. You asked, could you be too principled? In that they talk about all self-evident truth, right? And to me, those underlying all self-evident truth are a line, are they not?
Absolutely.
And so if they're a line, then I think it gets back to that original point. This is a super fascinating topic to me. I think it's a line in the sand that all self-evident truth.
Right. And I'm gonna, that line's been crossed. That line in the sand's been crossed many times by the government, and I think you are seeing more and more people coming to that conclusion. One of the things I'm seeing, on the YouTube channels that we follow is there's a lot of people that seem to be coming to the same conclusion. Either that, or they're reading from the same source.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether that's the Constitution or some pundit, I don't know. But there's a lot of people that did not used to talk about this that
Mm-hmm.
are now talking about it, which I think for the freedom and the patriot movement is fantastic.
Yeah, I think this is interesting too. You and I on tomorrow night are going to a homesteading get together, just a big potluck to talk about. The real basis of it is to talk about our own economy and to talk about how we do business together and how we can share resources and all of these. And a lot of these people we don't even know. These are circles outside of our circles. But what I find interesting about that is that through my YouTube channel, I've had a lot of comments lately about, hey, we're meeting up with X, Y, and Z, and hey, we're talking about this and we're talking about living free. So it can't be a collective going on. This is going on all over the place. It can't be just
and that was something that we talked about in that live we did the other night about the Homestead Festival in Hannibal. I mean, we met, oh gosh, we met 15, 20 people that were completely unrelated to each other that started talking about their own communities and their own circles, or were asking, they'd seen our videos and were asking, how do we do this? In fact, one of the people going to the potluck tomorrow is somebody that contacted me via email to ask about it. They've got their own circle and they want to know how we can do business with them, or collaborate or do whatever. Which I think it's fantastic that this conversation is going on.
Just today, I traded some welding work. I'm going to do some welding for a guy to fix some stuff that he's got, and in turn, he's going to lay a block of wall for me.
Oh, cool!
Love it, right?
Cool. Bartering 101. Yep.
He's happy. I'm happy. Life's grand.
Yep, absolutely. That's we're getting more and more into that. We're always bartering stuff with Darren, doing work for him and bartering stuff with him. So and it's how we're going to be free. Seriously, it frees us up from that fiat currency and allows us to operate at our own pace and not our own pace, but on our own level without interference. Well, you know what? I honestly, I don't have much else to say about principle number 5. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. There's not really much you can add to what was said. So let's go ahead and move on to the principle 6.
Okay, I've been looking forward to this one.
So am I, because there's a lot of good stuff here, folks.
Yeah.
Principle number 6: all mankind were created equal. Take it away, Tag.
Well, it says all men are created equal.
Oh, is that okay?
Okay, it's not all mankind. This is important, in my opinion.
Okay, shoot, go.
Okay. So this is going to be very well maybe another point that we disagree on. But then again, you could surprise me and say, you know what, that's exactly right. But I think what's interesting about this is that the most famous line from the Declaration of Independence is, "We hold these truths self-evident that all men are created equal." But I think what the founders meant by this is not what most people say. So I think I would like to start, if I have your permission, by asking you a question. I'm going to ask you a question. Okay, so this line specifically was written by Thomas Jefferson. Okay, and Thomas Jefferson was a slaveholder.
Right.
And so how is all men created equal written by a slaveholder? How is that not hypocritical? And I have an answer to this, but I'm just curious what you have to say.
So he was a slave owner, but he also realized that slavery was a problem, and the all men were created equal. At least the way I read it, was basically a compromise between the slaveholders and the non-slaveholders to get agreement, and I think that all men are created equal. It points directly to the genius of the Constitution, because the founding fathers knew that this was an issue, and they knew that it would have to be addressed at some point. So they wrote the Constitution in a way that there was a mechanism to fix the problem, and they didn't know when it would be fixed, and they didn't know how it would be fixed, but they knew eventually it was going to come up and be an issue. So there's my I think it just points to the genius of the founding fathers and the Constitution.
Yeah, I think I would like to offer potentially, and I'm not 100% sure of this, but an alternative view.
Okay.
Maybe as I through my life, as I'm trying to become more and more aware and try to understand it. When the founders talked about liberty and equality, they use this definition. These definitions came from their English culture. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay, so and liberty was a very commonly used term. I mean, even Patrick Henry, when he screamed out, give me liberty, or give me death in 1775, there really was no one really asked, okay, so what's the definition of this? And so I think when the founders talk about equality, I think they thought about it in terms of all men being equal under God, and of free men, which is quoted in there, right? And of free men being equal under the law. But I think this distinction of free men was important. So let me explain what I mean by this. So I think that the founders believed in a natural hierarchy of talents, right? That they believed that citizenship and the right to vote required both civic and moral virtue.
I agree.
Okay, and the reason why I say this is because there were states early on that required land ownership to vote. So how is it that all men created equal, but yet the interpretation back then was that you had to own land to vote?
Well, I think that before the law part designates that even though citizenship confers extra rights, you're still free. You're still equal under the law and in your rights and before God.
Yeah, I got another Jefferson quote for you here, bud.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so Jefferson wrote, "If a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be."
Man, is that an indictment of modern society or what?
Well, I think
I had never heard that one before. That is such a good quote.
yeah, which I think what's so interesting about this, bud, is I think that they believed that. Well, let me go back. So we talked about earlier how the other principle of liberty used mankind, and in this one they use men.
Okay.
And I think the distinction is important because part of me believes that it wasn't intended to apply to slaves or women or children. That most founding fathers favored this process consisting of men with talents and virtues, and that they believed that these men would be and should be the leaders of society.
To a point, but unfortunately, you caught me flat-footed.
It's okay. I don't know that I totally agree with this, but the more I read into it, the more I think that they kind of intended that only the virtuous played a role.
Well, and there's some truth in what you said, and I say you caught me flat-footed because I remember reading some were they Federalist papers or anything. I don't remember which ones they were. In fact, I can't even remember who wrote them. It's been so long ago, but I remember that there was conversation back and forth about that very issue, and you are correct. There were founding fathers that did believe that, but there are also ones that that thought that the all men are created equal extended to everybody, and that was the big not well yeah that was the big one of the big debates in writing the Constitution, and like I said, from my readings, the basis behind Principle 6 was a compromise to get everybody on the same page. The men that felt the hierarchy was there, and the men that felt that slavery was bad. Go on.
Yeah, I don't. Let me clarify something. I think they were saying that all men begin equal. But I think what they were also saying was by your effort, by your work habits, by your virtues, by your integrity, by your morals, that not all men end up equal. You know what I mean? Like,
well, you're talking about equality and equity because if they were talking about equity, then it would be all men are equal after the law. All men are equal after their rights, and that's not the case. They're talking about equal before. You have to do something in order to. God, that doesn't sound right. Okay, let me go ahead and talk, because let me compose what I was
Yeah, well, I think my point is, I think what they were saying is that all men are created equal and have the same, rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And what they do with it dictates so much more, which is why many of the states adopted a policy of you had to be a landowner to vote.
Right. Okay. Yeah, you
see what I'm saying? Like I think what they were saying is all men are created equal, but in the end, not all men are equal.
Okay, you just solidified what I was going to say. What I was going to say is basically that everybody starts at the same point, and what you do after that is
correct.
Is up to you, and it's your responsibility.
See, I think I agree with this.
And that's that. You just put it more eloquently than I was about ready to put it out in a way that was going to sound really.
Yeah, I really love this one, Bud. And I think if that most people read all men are created equal, with the same rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, I think they read it wrong. I don't think that's what they intended it to be from the beginning. I think that they believed, and I'll quote it again, that they believed that these men would be and should be the leaders of a free society, these men of virtue. And I think they planned it that way.
Well, and you put it that way, and I think it goes back, and there's proof in the fact that the, what was it, 2, 3, and 4 all talked about being virtuous and being moral.
Right. That's what I'm saying. If you add all that together.
Yep. Well, and you know what? It points directly to, what was it? 3, about electing moral people. It's
right.
It's our job to elect these moral people so that they can be our I hate to say leaders. That's anymore. That's taken on such a bad connotation. But you know what I mean. The people acting on our behalf. So yeah, I think you're spot on. I'm not in any disagreement whatsoever with anything you said.
I think the word that they would have used back then is a natural aristocracy.
Yeah, yeah. And as soon as an aristocracy based on lineage or power, money, and any time that takes the forefront, then the governmental system will break down, as witnessed by what's happening today.
I'm probably going to get some hate mail from what I'm about to say, but I don't care. I'll do them to say it anyway. That all men, women, regardless of race, color, creed, orientation, whatever they are, we all have the same value. Every one of us. I believe that in my heart, but we're not all equal. We're just not. I have, as I've had many, many, many employees, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of employees. You hire 2 of them at the exact same wage with the exact same qualifications. You come in, they both do different jobs, right? One's better than the other at it. It's just the way it is. We can sugarcoat it if we want to sugarcoat it, but we all have the same value, but we are not equal. Me and my wife have talked about this a lot. Men and women, we're not equal, and I will never say we're equal. We're worth the same. My wife's so much better at me at so many things. I am not equal to her in many, many things, and as she is not to me. But again, we have the same value, and I think this is what they were referring to.
Well, and anybody, I can't see how anybody can disagree with that statement. I honestly don't see how that could generate any controversy.
Garen, I got hate mail because I said people who are not needy should not be using welfare.
Seriously?
Yeah. So you tell me. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't understand people sometimes, Tag. And it's one of the reasons why I have these conversations with you, because I do not understand people. I don't understand how they can be controversial, especially coming from people that are watching this video. I mean, unless they're purposely watching it to tear it down, I can't see how you could disagree with that statement. And I can't see how anybody can't can't see from principle 6 that, you know, everybody is equal at the starting point.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
there's a fantastic cartoon that I saw, and it was three guys standing at a billboard fence, looking over the fence, watching a baseball game. One of them was really tall, and he was able to see over it without any help. The next guy had one box underneath him, and the other guy had two boxes underneath him. And it was basically said equality before God. And the next picture was the same three guys standing by the fence, but each one of them had a box. They had taken these boxes and they had equity. They all had a box. So the first guy could see even better. The second guy had to stand on his tippy toes and work to see over the fence, and the third guy couldn't see it at all. And I thought that is such, and it was equity is what they were talking about. And I thought it was such a great example of the difference between equal and equity. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's unfortunately, and I don't know if it's the education system or pop culture or whatever. And for some reason, people conflate the two constantly. I mean, you see it all the time.
Well, I think the problem is, but as we live in a culture or a society today where not everybody starts equal. I mean, the very principles of what this is saying are not true today. And they're not true today because the government gets involved in things they shouldn't have their hands in. They're not all started equal, but there are, kids. Let's just talk about, kids that are born into an encouraging, driven, moral, virtuous home versus, kids that are born, to a single mom in the inner city and really struggle and they don't see their parents ever because they're just trying to pay the bills. And I mean, so we have created this. We've created this place like this.
Okay.
I'm going to give you an example. I've told people for years, you want to fix the minimum wage problem, get rid of it. Just get rid of it. We don't need minimum wage because all it does is it allows businesses not to have to compete anymore and allow the system to further enslave people. Make McDonald's compete with Burger King for the best employees. That's the best way out of it.
Yeah.
Get rid of it.
But that's equality versus equity again. And
right.
I'm gonna disagree with the basic premise of that though.
Okay.
You know, it doesn't change how the circumstances that somebody's been born into does not change the starting point. Now it changes the race almost immediately, but it does not change the starting point. So I'm gonna disagree with the basic premise of it, but as far as the rest of it goes, yes, I agree. Society has really created a messed up dynamic there.
Oh my God.
You know, and I'll defend my stance by saying if what you say is true, then then how do you explain people that start out in the ghetto and succeed? They all had they all had an equal starting place, and they overcame the
obstacles. But this is not destiny, Garen. What we all start in different places. What we do with what we get, right, matters. I know a lot of people, lots and lots and lots of people who started with a silver spoon up their ass, and today, I mean, I know one particular guy that 5 years ago was driving a Porsche, and today is digging ditches. And it's what you do with it. Those people who come out of that hard beginning, it actually probably makes them better later on in life, right? They might be a little bit of an advantage. I think you could argue that, but they just went and worked their ass off.
Okay. Well, we're gonna agree on 99% of what you said.
Rock on.
Okay. And all right. So you got anything that I'm with you? That is such a great topic. You got anything else to say on it?
No, again, I think it's a wonderful topic, and I think some searching about what they really meant by it really matters, because I think if you look at the clues all along the way, virtuous, 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 the laws early on about land ownership and all of this, they weren't saying that, they were expecting virtuous men to rise.
Right. Exactly.
And I think it's super fascinating.
Right. And anybody that's watching this, don't think that what we're saying is that people are people should be in a position of authority due to their virtuosity. It's the people that we want in that position of authority. I mean, because I could see somebody really twisting that idea up and coming up with something really completely opposite of what we're actually trying to say.
Well, and I could see it too, but at the end of the day, what we're talking about is what was written back then and what their what they actually believed back then, or our interpretation of what they believed back then. You know, the world's very different than it was, you know, obviously back then.
Right. Okay. Well, without objection, I'd like to go to principle number 7.
Okay.
Let's see.
Oh yeah, this will be a good one.
Oh yeah. Principle 7. The proper role of government is to protect equal rights, not provide equal things. Hey, man. Okay, guys. Everybody, good night. I mean, how can you elaborate on that? Seriously, it just, yes. That's basically my starting point on that conversation. Is yes. You know.
Yeah, I think that gosh, there's so much into this one, you know, that talking about, you know, any control or that's not specifically given to the federal government should lie in the hands of the states, right? And you know, we've talked about this, you know, over and over and over again, but I don't think people can delegate to the government a power to do anything that they can't do for themselves. So, you know, like for example, you know, we have the right to, you know, protect our life and our property, right? And so we can delegate that off to the police departments. We can, you know, do all of those things. But that the government's job would be to protect the lives and the properties of all the people equally, you know, across the board, which they don't do, right?
Right.
Yeah, there's so much about this.
Well, and I think it says right in the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, and it they talk about these inalienable rights, and then they say it. It's the government's responsibility to secure them, and unfortunately, you know, you can't have this conversation without talking about what's happening now. You know, the government first, the government isn't protecting equal rights. In fact, the government promotes inequality.
Yes.
On multiple fronts. You know,
Yep.
racial, economic, gender.
Yep.
The government promote,
Yep.
and it's gotten worse. You know, and it's. But unfortunately, the government's a reflection of the culture. The government is a reflection of the people, and there's a huge segment of the population that feels that that's the government's role, or it should be the government's role. Not that it is, but it should be, and they promote it. You know, and it goes back to what you're saying about delegating stuff to the government. The government, the only power that the government should exert is what's legal in the Constitution. And by using that statement, that negates probably a good 70-80% of the bureaucracy that's in the government right now. You know?
Yeah, when the government was given the power to rob from the rich and give to the poor, it immediately nullified the principle of guaranteed equal rights.
Absolutely.
Period. So people want to talk about this, oh, let's tax the rich more, or let's whatever. What they don't understand what they're. Let me give you an example. So you remember when? Oh, you don't remember, a long time ago, but in history books, when you read when the communists seized power in Hungary. Okay, so when they seized this power in Hungary, the peasants originally were very delighted because at first the government seized these, you know, large farms from their owners, and then they gave out chunks of these farms to the peasants. But then later, the government seized 3/4 of the peasants' land to create a government communal farm. And you know, the peasants obviously screamed about this, about their property rights, but you know, by then it was too late, and now it's so corrupt that if they continued to protest, they lost their liberty, and I'm assuming in many cases their lives.
Well, you know, there's a modern equivalent of that playing out now.
Yes.
The IRS, this fighting somehow fighting inflation equates to doubling the size of the IRS.
Mm-hmm.
And the IRS, the IRS has flat out come out and said that the middle class is the target. They're gonna start trying to extract the taxes that are owed the government
Mm-hmm.
from the middle class people that haven't paid it. You know, and that's the same people the same people that applauded, you know, attacking the 1% and Occupy Wall Street are going to be screaming bloody murder whenever their ox is gored.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep, just wait till it applies to them.
absolutely. All right, hey, sorry about the cut, folks. That's the limitations of having basic Zoom. I probably ought to quit being a cheapskate and pop for the full version. But I don't know. Tag said something occurred to him while we were on our little break, starting the second part of this meeting. Tag, you want to go ahead and tell people about
Yeah,
it?
I just wanted to read. I wanted to read an interesting paragraph because we talk about, you know, all of these principles and how, you know, people start at the same point, and if through morality are allowed, you know, through their life, you know, that the whole nation can succeed. But I found this paragraph really interesting. It said the founders made sure that we could protect our freedoms to prosper by protecting the rights of all people. There was no penalty for getting rich. The people would not be locked into a poverty level as they had in other nations. There would be some that would have more than others, but the entire nation could prosper. It was believed that man's instinct to succeed, and by having the freedom to prosper, the whole people would prosper together. People were encouraged to store up and save for a time when things were not prosperous, or to help their neighbors when they hit on rough times. Hard work, thrifty, and frugality were the key words of the American ethic.
Cool. That's a good statement. Right?
Yeah, and I think this is interesting because what we're talking about with, you know, the government getting involved in things, what they do, like there's a layer in here. It says that let me see here. The people would not be locked into a poverty level as they had in other nations, except that's exactly what I think we're getting to in a lot of ways, is, you know, the modern day slavery, which people on my channel hear me talk about all the time. That if they would just let us go and be virtuous and go and work hard and go and do those, I think this, when they're talking about what the founders meant, I think this is exactly correct. Yeah. But when you're micromanaging minimum wage and you're micromanaging all, you know, who qualifies for what based upon some political agenda each year and all this, it takes away this ability.
Yeah, I agree. And something occurred to me while I was setting getting the meeting going again. You know, I think Principle 7, it goes right back to Cain and Abel. You know, he sold his birthright for a bowl of soup, and he gave away something that was not his to give away. And I think whenever we delegate to the government powers that they don't have, that we're giving away our birthrights. And we all know how the story of Cain and Abel ended. And I'm afraid that we're headed down the same road as a nation. You know?
Yeah, can I share a Samuel Adams quote on this?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so Samuel Adams said the utopian schemes of leveling. When he's talking about leveling, he's talking about the redistribution of wealth, right? So the utopian schemes of leveling and a community of goods, meaning, you know, central ownership of all the means of production and distribution. So the utopian schemes of leveling and a community of goods are as visionary and impractical as those which vest all property in the crown. These ideas are arbitrary and unconstitutional.
Yeah. I mean, I can't argue. I can't argue the fact. And you know, we start talking about the constitutionality of everything that's going on. You know, we've got Supreme Court justices who are supposed to rely on the Constitution as the basis of making decisions, saying that it's they don't use it. They openly state that they don't use the Constitution. So how can we expect constitutionality from the law if the law won't even recognize the Constitution? Mm-hmm. You know, whenever we're having an argument that the the liberals feel that they have to expand the court just so that they can change the balance. I mean, have we gone around the bend? Have we gone past the tipping point? You know, I don't know. I honestly don't know. All I know is that we need to we start taking back control by doing things at the local level and teaching the Constitution and not only to kids but to adults. I mean, as adults, we don't understand the Constitution the way we should, and we don't understand what it means to be free as a group. As a group, we don't understand what it means to be free because we've never seen it in person. You know, people are just now starting to explore it and understand how much we've given up and how much has been taken from us.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this or not, but Benjamin Franklin was once on welfare. Did you know this?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, so he was actually on welfare as a younger man, and he later on in his life, as they were writing out all of these documents, he was quoted as saying that a lot of the welfare programs were, and I need to get a T-shirt that says this, that were counterproductive compassion. His words.
Yeah. I've heard that stated differently, the same sentiment many times.
And he said that it encourages idleness.
Yeah. One of my favorite stories is Daniel Boone was running for his second term in Congress, and he went home to Kentucky, and they had to ride their horses around, and they saw people in person. Well, he went to one of the counties in Kentucky and went to see one of the most powerful people in Kentucky. He was somebody that had supported Boone before, and the man wouldn't even take an audience with him, wouldn't even see him. And Boone was like, "What's going on?" Well, he finally got in front of the guy, and he said, "What is wrong? Why won't you support me now?" And basically, the guy, there was a bill in Congress to give aid and comfort to a widow of a war from 1812, or maybe it was the Mexican American War. I don't remember which one it was. Well, no, it had to be 1812 because it was before the Alamo. But Boone had voted for it, and Boone was like, "What, you don't have compassion for this woman? Her husband was killed, and she had like 7 kids, and the government felt that the military pension wasn't enough, and so they voted to help her out." And the man looked at him flatly and said, "It wasn't your money to give away." And that's one of my favorite stories about welfare. It's not the government's money to give away. And Boone changed his tune on it. Boone from the story that I read, Boone publicly said that he regretted voting on that bill because he did not understand what he was doing. And I think a lot of people don't understand what they're supporting and what they're doing these days.
Yeah, I think what you said right there gets to the root of the problem. Is that at the end of the day, the federal government has gotten too big. And, a lot of these things, we talk about welfare, but it's also the other side of that argument. It should be handled all locally. It should, it really has no business, in my opinion, up there. And it's interesting, we talk about all of this stuff, but our founding fathers were, not anti-welfare at all. In fact, they had a set of guidelines when they talked about it called the calculated compassion. I don't know if you know this or not, but they were actually very for helping the poor, but it was all community based.
They felt the private citizens should do it.
Yes, it was community based.
They
wasn't government based.
Yeah, and the only thing the government did was it got out of the way of charity. And that's a simple fact. You can look at the numbers, and every time taxes go up, charitable giving in this country goes down. And I don't care what anybody says about the American people as a whole. we are the most generous populace on the planet by far. We have when the government's not in the way, we have the income and the means to help people. And I saw it firsthand. I don't know if you were ever stationed overseas, but I saw it firsthand when I was stationed overseas traveling around. And I saw so much private charity that just eclipsed what our government was giving to people. And because it was given by charity, it went to where it was needed. It wasn't going to where it was dictated. There weren't millions of dollars being sent to Pakistan for gender studies. So
yeah, gee, I don't know if I've told you this or not, but I have completely stopped giving to charity in the traditional sense. I don't donate at all anymore. What I do is I donate locally. We've adopted, families for Christmas. We've, I've bought school clothes for other families. I'm trying to get as community, based as I can. And I try to work on my community and help my community right here where I live. I'm not giving to the big ones that, I'm not doing it anymore.
You know what? As a family, we donated it to Vets for Child Safety as part of Billy Bond's campaign whenever he had it up. We did that one, but I also kind of did that as a wedding gift to William and his new bride.
Right.
Because he said in lieu of a gift, do that. But other than that, maybe some missionaries through the church. But as a family, we've always done it locally because that's where we see the benefit, and that's where, and admittedly, that there's probably a little bit of control issue on it because we want it going where we feel it needs to go and not where the government feels it needs to go. So yeah, and anybody that's watching this video, if you do give to charity, maybe rethink what you're doing and see if your money's not better spent by sending it to somebody local.
Well, I mean, let me add to your statement.
Okay.
If you're out there and you're giving charity, give charity away to something you can control. Do you want to give it to the system to continue on what's going on? Or do you want to remove that productivity out of the system and give it to something that affects your neighbor?
Amen.
That's how I would say it.
Amen. Well, on that, I mean, you can't really give a action point better than that, can you?
Yeah, no, it's
So there's your mission this week, folks. That's your mission. Go out and take control and help your community. All right. You got any closing thoughts? You got anything cool going on?
Oh yeah. Well, we're working hard. Like I was telling you earlier, I poured some concrete today, finished up the roof on pod 4 today. B has been at mad in the garden. She has, 500 pepper plants. She's trying to get peppers. She's trying to get put up. Tomatoes are we have stuff everywhere, and trying to race it at the same time, trying to do business and keep the bills paid and all of those things. But I think my parting notes, to everybody, which I say this all the time, but now's the time, and you get to choose. That's it. You get to choose, and you can choose freedom, but with freedom comes risk. You have to be willing to accept that risk, and you guys don't know the famous sentence from the founding fathers that said those who would give up their freedom for safety deserve neither. And if you look back at a zoo and there's a lion in a zoo in a cage, that lion is safe. That lion is secure. But wouldn't you much rather be the lion out on the Serengeti chasing prey? I choose to be free. I'm getting out of the system. I'm tired of it. I've gone galt, and I would encourage everybody to do the exact same thing.
Goes back to the superhero deer roaming your property.
That's right. That's right.
I think that's great. We're okay. I finally got the merchandise store opened up.
Oh, cool.
I'm gonna put the link to it down there, folks. If you want any Grumpy Acres apparel, feel free to spend your money. We appreciate it. We got three designs that are branded Grumpy Acres, but they speak to a message of freedom. Right? They do that. So I said in the live stream that we weren't going to be pimping that stuff. So that is the only thing I'm going to say about it. The link's down below, and you guys do what you feel is right.
Did you see my shirt?
Yes, I did.
And if you look at the back, it says "Hold the line, don't give an inch."
Yes.
I'm not selling them. I'm just wearing them, but I got a shirt.
You know what? Yep, exactly. Can they contact you on your from your channel?
Yeah, you can. I don't really have a mechanism to create them. I just create them here local because I don't know. I think showing up to a school board meeting wearing a hold the line, don't give an inch shirt's funny to me.
Yeah.
It's like it helps me with my sense of humor, I don't know. But yeah, you can contact me, and if there's enough of them there, maybe I'd print a batch. But
you know what? What Bobby says. You know what? I'm going to be an unapologetic capitalist.
Yep.
I want to get that. I want to get that alternative revenue stream up, so I don't feel like I need to go to the job to help maintain the homestead.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep. And when you do that, bud, and I'm going to spend all of my time trying to convince people to get their asses out of the system.
Absolutely. Well, and that's what a couple of okay. One of them's a St. Patty's Day shirt, a little bit early, but the other two are definitely freedom inspired.
Yep.
All right, folks. With all that said, go ahead if you found this enjoyable. Go ahead and share it with somebody that could maybe use a little encouragement on getting free. Hit the notification bell so you know when we're dropping the next video. Go over to Being Tagged's channel. If you're not a sub there, go ahead and subscribe there and hit the notification bell there. They put out really good content. I really wish that I was as polished as they are in doing the videos. But that's the difference between somebody who's a born who has very much experience in speaking to people and somebody like me.
Oh, and I got unlimited amount of content. B's always on vacation, and I catch her on vacation all the time. So I just film B being on vacation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When's she gonna put her hammock up between those trees and just
I'm ready.
All day long?
Yep, I'm ready.
That's Angela's sloughing off right now. Just while we're filming, she was sanding and painting all day. We're actually almost done with the second bedroom. In fact, I'm starting to lay floor on Saturday.
Love it.
But she's
Love
right
it,
now
love it,
she's
love it.
lounging around, just doing nothing. What can I
Yep.
say? We love them, right?
Amen.
All right, folks. You know what? Hold the line. Don't give an inch, and go pursue a life done free, guys. Take it easy.
Yeah. See you guys.